September 10, 1952. The Korean War raged beneath monsoon clouds as Captain Jesse Fulmar guided his F4U 4B Corsair through turbulent skies. A decorated Navy pilot with Squadron VFA 312, Fulmar had logged hundreds of combat hours in the aging propeller-driven fighter. Today's mission seemed routine, a ground attack sortie from the USS Sicily targeting North Korean armor near the Taedong River, dangerously close to the Chinese border. His wingman, Lieutenant Daniels, flew in tight formation as they carried their lethal payload, 2 1,000-pound bombs and 8 HVAR rockets each. The Corsairs, though battle-tested veterans of World War II, were increasingly obsolete in an era of jet warfare. Yet they remained the workhorses of carrier-based ground attack operations, their reliability and payload capacity keeping them relevant despite their age. At 0610 hours, both aircraft launched into the gray dawn. By 0700, they cruised at 10,000 feet, crossing the hostile coastline into enemy territory. Intelligence had reported minimal air activity in their sector. Fulmar relaxed slightly, scanning for targets while maintaining situational awareness. The mission profile called for identifying and destroying tank concentrations supporting communist forces, dangerous work that required flying low and slow over heavily defended terrain. At 0800 hours, everything changed. Banking past a small island in the estuary, Fulmar caught movement in his peripheral vision, something approaching fast and low from behind. Initially, he couldn't process what he was seeing. Silver shapes, moving at impossible speeds for this altitude, closing rapidly on his position. Then, recognition struck like ice water in his veins. MiG-15s, not one or two, but multiple Russian-built jet fighters in loose formation, positioning for an attack run. The technological mismatch was staggering. The MiG-15 represented cutting-edge aviation technology, swept wings, turbojet power, near-supersonic capability in a dive. Armed with 2 23mm cannons and one 37mm cannon, a single hit from these weapons could tear a Corsair apart. In comparison, Fulmar's F4U 4B carried 4 20mm cannons and struggled to exceed 446 miles per hour in level flight. This wasn't a fight. It was an execution waiting to happen. But Jesse Fulmar was no ordinary pilot. A veteran with years of combat experience, he understood that survival meant seizing whatever minuscule advantages existed. Without hesitation, he jettisoned his entire ordnance load. Bombs, rockets, and external fuel tanks crashed into the estuary below. His Corsair, suddenly 3,000 pounds lighter, became marginally more agile. "Daniels, defensive weave! Now!" Fulmar barked into his radio, simultaneously jamming his throttle forward and engaging war emergency power. The massive Pratt & Whitney R2800 radial engine roared to life, all 18 cylinders delivering 2,400 horsepower, boosted to nearly 2,800 with water injection. The Corsair's distinctive inverted gull wings bit into the air as both pilots initiated a synchronized defensive maneuver. Fulmar's plan relied on physics and psychology. The MiG's speed advantage became a liability in close-quarters maneuvering. Like a matador facing a charging bull, he would use their momentum against them. As the jets screamed in for their first pass, Fulmar called the brake. "Right, now!" Both Corsairs snapped into opposite turns, forcing the MiGs to blow through their formation without achieving firing solutions. The jets, traveling at nearly twice the Corsair's speed, couldn't match the propeller plane's instantaneous turn rate. They rocketed past, pulling up to reposition for another attack. This was Fulmar's window, seconds to act before the MiGs converted altitude back into attacking speed. He spotted one MiG slightly separated from the formation, beginning its diving turn back toward them. Fulmar rolled inverted, pulling his nose down to meet the threat head-on. It was insanity. A propeller plane challenging a jet in a head-to-head pass. The closure rate was terrifying. Combined speeds approached 900 miles per hour. Fulmar had perhaps 2 seconds to achieve a firing solution. He led the target instinctively, muscle memory from thousands of gunnery runs guiding his aim. His 420mm cannons erupted, sending a stream of high-explosive shells into the MiG's flight path. The intersection was perfect. Fulmar watched his rounds impact the MiG's fuselage, bright flashes indicating solid hits. The jet's engine erupted in flame, thick gray smoke pouring from its tail. The MiG nosed over violently, its pilot ejecting as the stricken aircraft plummeted toward the estuary. In that moment, Fulmar saw something that would haunt him. The North Korean pilot's flight suit was on fire. Without thinking, the American pilot dove his Corsair directly at the descending parachute, using his powerful prop wash to extinguish the flames. Even in the heat of combat, humanity prevailed. "Nothing personal," Fulmar would later recall. "We were just doing our jobs." But the fight was far from over. Fulmar counted 4 more MiGs regrouping for coordinated attacks. The odds remained impossible. He'd expended significant ammunition downing one jet, and the enemy now knew the Corsair posed a genuine threat. They wouldn't underestimate him again. "Daniels, break for the ship," Fulmar commanded. "I'll hold them as long as I can. Get to the 40mm coverage." His wingman protested briefly before complying. If Daniels could reach the carrier's anti-aircraft umbrella, he might survive. Fulmar turned to face the MiGs alone, pushing his battered Corsair into a power dive that sent the airspeed indicator off the scale. Estimates suggest he exceeded 550 miles per hour, well beyond the aircraft's designed limits. The second MiG opened fire. Fulmar felt the Corsair shudder as 37mm cannon rounds found their mark. 5 feet of his port wing disintegrated. The starboard horizontal stabilizer vanished. His port side cannons hung uselessly beneath the wing, dangling by their ammunition feeds. By all rights, the Corsair should have been unflyable. But the rugged fighter, built to survive carrier operations and Pacific combat, refused to die. Fulmar fought the controls, using full right stick to compensate for the missing wing section. With only 2 functioning cannons and a crippled aircraft, he pulled up for one final pass. Leading another MiG perfectly, he emptied his remaining ammunition, watching his round strike the jet's wing root. The MiG, trailing smoke, broke off its attack. Now defenseless, engine overheating from extended war emergency power, Fulmar prepared to bail out. He transmitted his position for search and rescue, reaching for his canopy release. At that moment, a third MiG rolled in behind him. The distinctive thud of heavy cannon fire filled the air as rounds bracketed his position. Miraculously, they missed. Fulmar ejected successfully his beloved Corsair, his companion through 5 years of service, spiraling into the estuary below. Hidden in riverside brush, he watched 8 MiG-15s circle overhead for an hour before departing to refuel. 8 jets against 1 propeller fighter, and he'd destroyed one, damaged another, and saved his wingman. An SA-16 Albatross rescue aircraft, guided by Fulmar's emergency transmission, plucked him from hostile territory. His actions that day earned the Silver Star, Distinguished Flying Cross, and Purple Heart. More importantly, he'd proven that courage, skill, and tactical innovation could overcome seemingly impossible odds. The engagement entered aviation history as perhaps the most lopsided aerial victory of the jet age. A World War II vintage propeller fighter, designed when jets were merely experimental, had faced 8 of the Soviet Union's finest fighters and emerged victorious. It wasn't supposed to be possible. The MiG-15's speed, altitude, and firepower advantages should have made the outcome inevitable. But Captain Jesse Fulmar understood something the MiG pilots didn't. Technology alone doesn't win battles. The human element, the synthesis of experience, courage, and split-second decision-making, remained paramount. His Corsair might have been obsolete, but the pilot wasn't. In later years, Fulmer rarely discussed the engagement, maintaining the quiet humility common among his generation of warriors. He returned to civilian life, his portrait hanging in the National Museum of Naval Aviation, depicting that impossible moment when a Corsair's guns found a MiG-15 in their sights. Jesse Fulmer passed away on July 30th, 2004, aged 84. His legacy lives on not merely in medals or museum displays, but in the lesson he taught that September day over Korea, that determination and skill can triumph over seemingly insurmountable odds, that David can still defeat Goliath, and that sometimes one pilot in an obsolete fighter can change the course of an engagement through sheer force of will. The last Corsair pilot to down a MiG had proven that in aerial combat, the most important component isn't always the aircraft, it's the warrior within it.